Yantras. Preface. Yantram. What does it mean? Yantram in ordinary use means a mechanism or organ for doing work in an effective, systematized manner with a view to achieving a definite end. Such work evidently implies three things: the end, setting the principle or rule of action; the means, setting the combination and coordinating of the forces doing the work; and the method, setting the necessary conditions and practical lines of such action. In scientific analysis, the first gives formula and equation, the second, diagram and design, the third, function according to plan. And with respect to given or assigned conditions. Basically speaking, these three are mantram, yantram, and tantram respectively. One may call them rule, ruler, and ruling, or principles of law, code, and procedure, and so on. With respect to anything that is or becomes, they answer the three root questions. Why is it so? What makes it so? And how is it so? Obviously, the three are interrelated. In the word yantram, one should seize upon the root yam, pronounced as yam and not yam. Note what that root means and implies, and correlate it with the root principle or bijam of Vayu, which is also yam. Vayu is cosmic prana or elan vital. It is the cosmic fund of both potential and kinetic power as a whole. That is, without abstraction and limitation as material, vital, or mental. When this power as a whole operates as a system of control, as a ruler with respect to a given end or objective, it is yantram. It is essentially, therefore, a power disposition and design, not a mere model representation, picture, or graph. It is superficial thinking to look upon the mystic yantram as symbolic or pictorial. It is dynamic, Shakti Lekha. But in understanding and appreciation thereof, it is more suitable to begin with the sketch, drawing, graph, and so on. But the initial approach should be such as to open up newer and fuller vistas of complete dynamic import and significance. The means, that is, the yantram, will signify nothing unless we can show it in the context of the entire movement from beginning to end, unless the picture of the event can be exhibited in its entire dynamic setup. A boat on the river pulled by two ropes in directions making an angle gives no intelligible meaning of its actual movement unless we are able to resolve the resultant effect into its constituent parallelogram. This instance is typical. Examine an organism, a crystal, a molecule, an atom. Inspect any planned structure in human or natural scheme. The structural design is laid upon a functional plan, and that again upon a dynamic scheme or power pattern. It is the last that controls, yam, and rules. What is this behind any situation that presents itself? any event that takes place. That is the be-all and end-all question. The power, as we have noted, is only abstractedly and segmentally physical. Nevertheless, it is the analysis of physical science and mathematics that sets the first model and draws the first sketch, suggesting the fuller and more basic pictures. We are in quest of fundamental ground plan, the heart and core picture of power. In other words, Releka. In this vital quest, it is possible that one can catch or miss the direct home line. Even systematized, scientific pursuit has oftener than not strayed off the right track and missed the correct orientation. It has been said that intelligence is a tool-making organ. So there has been no lack of tools, instruments, appliances. They serve a variety of ends and purposes. But of what positive, lasting, fulfilling, and harmonizing value have been most of these? Are they in affiliation to the far-off divine event to which all creation moves? Do they even suggest that there may be, all appearance to the contrary notwithstanding, a divine purpose and end, at all inspiring the basic scheme of creation? The question cannot, particularly at this crucial world juncture, be evaded or postponed. Without boldly facing this, we cannot quit the fatal quicksands of maladaptation and vicious circle, both subjective and objective, in which we have been caught. Hence power, or Shakti as whole, has to be understood and appreciated with its appropriate mantram, yantram, and tantram in the senses above noted. We imagine, for instance, that we are now near, if not actually at, the core picture of at least material being and behavior. Our equations have, at any rate, a reassuring look of thorough and compact reasonableness. Deceptive is not that look. But the equations have, in practical application, ominously equivocated and not helpfully equated the basic queries and discrepancies in the appreciation of creation and existence. So possibly only a side door to an antechamber of what reality resides in has been opened. Yantram, in its fullest context and coordination, must evolve from the first principles of creation. The potency of Yantram, or power diagram, in all relevant dimensions, varies in geometrical ratio, so to say, according to the refinement and purity of the power field composition. Hence, what controls the intra-atomic field of energy is enormously more powerful than mechanical, chemical, or molecular systems of control. If by prana is meant not simply vitality or biological entity, but an all-pervasive cosmic principle of renewing and creative activity, then pranic control ought to be more powerful than atomic. Modern science and modern methods must now essay to make that pranic control available in an increasingly helpful measure. For in such availability lies all hope of harmonized creative progress. The consummation of such progress can be reached only by opening Hrleka of things, by yoga, where the spirit reigns as perfect power and perfect harmony. Therefore, Yantram must be traced from the magnum matrix, that is, the perfect power positing itself as the perfect Bindu, down to our appreciated planes of magnitude, number, and space-time. Yantram should affiliate all known and appreciated matrices to the Magna matrix. And this affiliation necessarily bears the character of a logico-mathematical descent. The drawing looks, apart from the internal scheme of the interlaced triangle, like a flower in partial bloom, with 6 symmetrical, or say parabolic petals, joined at the stem axis by 2 others, one at each side of the axis, which are still hidden and unfolded. The 2 hidden stem buds are marked with plus and minus signs. Basically, this means the 6-phase functioning that becomes patent or manifest in the analysis of any creational entity or event, and the 2 hidden axes buds are or represent the mystic Ardhamatra on either side of the Bindu and its axis of self-projection. They link up, both in the sense of evolution and of involution, what is patent and manifest with what is radically there as the potent and unmanifest. The entire scheme is supervised by Om at the core, or Hrleka. Om itself, in its rise, shows this 8-phase pattern in dynamic creation. These, for instance, represent the 8-phase pattern. Paravyakta, Bindu, Vyakta, Setu, Udita is nada, Vilaya, nada, Vyakta Setu. Ponder also over the relation of this diagram to the famous mystic mantram. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasyate. This is full, that is full. Full evolves from full. Full taken from full means full. In this mantram, the 2 mystic words Udhyate and Adya, that is, taken out and taken in, stand respectively for positive and negative stem buds, or Ardhamatra. The Yantram as symmetry in creative evolution. Consciousness is power. As this is an identity, its simple converse is also true. Power is consciousness. Consciousness is of being and becoming. So power is to be and become. Power posits itself as will. Hence, will to be and will to become. This is Kala, which, as basic desire, is Kama-Kala. Cosmically, it is what informs, formulates, shapes, patterns. Kala as such is not an aspect, phase, or partial. It is the evolvent principle, which evolves as these. And these are evolved. Creative evolution begins. But how can this be in an absolutely homogeneous continuum, which consciousness power, or Chit Shakti, foundationally and persistingly is. On a lower plane, it is like producing a vortex ring atom in a perfectly elastic fluid of ether. It would not be possible if Chit Shakti were pure self-manifestation or prakasha only. But Chit Shakti is vimarsha also. That is to say, it not only is and manifests its own being, but it also becomes and manifests what it becomes. Prakasha and vimarsha are not insoluble. This is shown in God Mother Kali. There, Kala in the fundamental context is Kali. For the purpose of evolution, Kala, or the will to become, must gather the foundational power continuum to a point. And the point must be perfect potency and readiness to become, create, and evolve. It is the perfect seed of all possible creation and evolution. So it cannot admit some possibilities and shun others. The Bindu, that is, the continuum gathering itself perfectly into the point, is the cosmic seed or semen. Yet in itself, it is acosmic, in the sense that all cosmic potentials here have their apex or perfection, and cosmic actuals also have here their base point of complete evanescence. It is the perfect point of both cosmic origin and end. All movements start and finish here. Cosmic possibilities are full. Cosmic specifications are nil here. It is that where the full and the nil coexist. It is the mystery nexus that connects the alogical absolute with what is perfectly logical, or pure reason. It is metaphysical in the sense that, though immanent in, it transcends cosmic experience. Any element or unit of cosmic experience must have the Bindu at its core, as its dynamic matrix, its base of equilibrium and repose. Shiva Shakti are in coalescence. The Bindu is metageometrical in the sense that all dimensions, not merely of space-time, but of all other predictable coordinates, evolve from the Bindu, from which any specified frame can choose its own system of coordinates. Any scheme of analysis and synthesis, of differentiation and integration, has to start with, rest on, and finish with the Bindu. Examine this position with reference to any system of curves and their governing equations. Any equation has commonly to be reduced to a pure pattern, in which the right-hand side is 0, which stands for Bindu, as a point of evanescence and equilibration. Given in that pattern, the roots and their relations are worked out, as in the quadratic equation. In the differentiation, the functional increment must be taken to the point of evanescence, so that you can evolve the differential coefficient, giving you the true rate of change in a configuration. In integration, 0 and infinity are the two natural limits, and both these coalesce in Bindu. Bindu projects out of itself the two poles, that is 0 and infinity, plus or minus, which make integration possible and appreciable. In the four-dimensional appreciation of the universe, the Bindu is represented at the intersection of now line and here line as the here now point. So on, recognize the Bindu in the tracing of vital and mental processes. But all this is in the evolved picture, in Kala, meaning in such context, aspect, phase, or partial. In the foundational context, Bindu is will to become, and is perfect potency and readiness to become. It is evolvent power, as perfect proneness. For the purpose of actual evolution, drawing of not only this, but all possible cosmic diagrams, what it does first of all is to evolve a fundamental frame. But what can the fundamental frame be with reference to the cosmic diagram going to evolve? It can be thought of as this: a given plane in the continuum represented by a line of homoplanar continuity. You may call it the axis of homoplanarity. All other possible planes in all possible dimensions touch or cut the given axis, making cones or angles. Of these, the right angle gives you the vertical line. But we are not yet in geometry. Think of the cone or the right angle basically and cosmically. The foundational frame of the cosmic picture yet to evolve must be one of straightness and simplicity. The oblique and curved come later. The first principles and their primordial processes do not have them. The first polarity, Vama and Dakshina. So Bindu, or perfect power point, in its first movement becomes the axis of homoplanarity. Yet it is and remains its origin. Then from itself as origin it moves up and down vertically. Before that, there was the right and left movement along with given axis. We have necessarily to speak in spatial and temporal terms, but the first process is not in space-time. The rationale, however, is to evolve directed or vector function from the basic undirected. Shakti becomes Shakti Lekha, and this evolves the plus-minus polarity, which is at the base of all cosmic polarity. While evolving such directedness and polarity, without which too creation is not possible, Bindu still remains the neutral origin. The second polarity, duplication and inversion. Besides oppositely directed polarity, the cosmic design requires a third coefficient, a closed, bounded, defined, specified sphere being generated. But how can this be in a perfectly homogeneous field, which is a continuum? The foundational frame, with opposition of sense as the first beginning of polarity, is already there. But it is not enough. Suppose a point moves straight ad infinitum. It does not enclose. It moves right and left, up and down. Still, it does not enclose or envelop. It could, if possible, move in a circle, ellipse, and so on. But in this pure descent, curvature is not yet allowed. Nor does the principle of least action, demanding the shortest route, permit it a pure plenum. So for actual creative process, the Bindu must evolve itself as a trikona. By the middle perpendicular line, it can of course show its evolved triangle, in a manner of polar opposition and association. But for a fuller and more dynamic polarity, it has to duplicate along its axis the evolved triangle as one up and one down. Think deeply what the first act of division and the second act of duplication means, basically and cosmically. Think incidentally also of cell division and duplication. Look deeply into other cases also. But by these two acts, Bindu has added but one more kona to the three already evolved. For creation, one must have basically 3 times 2, which equals to 6 konas to work upon. Consider, for example, how in trigonometry the original 3 ratios are duplicated and inverted. Creation cannot evolve, as it has evolved, from pure patterns, presenting only touch fronts to one another, being simply juxtaposed and confronted with one another. It requires a merger principle for integration. The factor of coefficiency and confluence must come in. The primary power triangle must, for the purpose of the creative process, evolve as the two interlaced trikonas, presenting a symmetrical, poised, and balanced hexagon pattern. And each apex of the hexagon must be dynamic, so as to recreate itself according to the basic scheme. Interlacing means interpenetration and coordination of the polarized patterns. For example, the impregnated ovum, matching of blood, and so on. The primary power triangle must be interpreted according to relevant context. It is, for instance, point, process, pattern, or product, Bindu, Nada, Kala, in the derived sense respectively. It may be Ichcha, Kriya, and Jnana. As standing for the first creative sound Om, the 3 sides are A function, U function, and function. We on our plane do the Om as a wave pattern. It rises from the primary axis of Madhyama, on which the Bindu rests. It returns to it. But the wave pattern is a curving up of the triangle pattern. Take other instances and illustrations. In the hexagonal scheme, each basic function, such as Ichcha, Jnana, and so on, is duplicated, polarized, opposed, and coordinated. The hexagon is the basic pattern of cosmic symmetry in polarized manifestation. Analytically, you must investigate on a system of 3 times 2 equals 6 coordinates. Every bija mantram exhibits them. For example, in Om, A, U, M, Nada, Bindu, Kala. Try to pattern Om hexagonally, also Klim or Aim. Each of these 3 cofactors, A, U, M, has to be done as Nada-wise or Bindu-wise, and Kala, the pattern principle, is to see to it that in the process the functional tone, symmetry, balance, and repose are maintained. For instance, if by differential y over differential x we get the true rate of changing function from the rising Om to the setting Om in Gayatri, in each of the 6 phases, or Mach 6, the values obtained must be symmetrical with respect to one another, And what is all important at the basic Bindu, the differential y over differential x must be equal to 0, or as nearly as possible to 0, because differential y over differential x of a constant is 0. Trace also the evolution of number from this mystic constant. For example, 3 times 6 times 6 is equal to 108, which is equal to 3 to the power of 3 plus 3 to the power of 3 times 2, or 2 to the power of 2 times 3 to the power of 3. The theory of numbers and the basic rules of addition, multiplication, etc. must evolve from the dynamic point. The mathematical universe of physical theory is now recognized. Metaphysical theory should make this follow from its first principles. It is also seen that nature, left to herself, works in crystals and patterns. So symmetrical and harmony must be in essentials of natural scheme. Follow up these essentials to their fundamentals. Symmetry as basic norm in creation. 1. Power posits itself as Bindu, or perfect will to become. Power posits itself. This, regarded as perfect potency and readiness to evolve, is Bindu. The first posture of Bindu is the will, or Kala, to see its perfect potency as perfect patency. This seeing is Ikshanam. But this seeing or realizing of patency takes on the character of a movement or process. Whence planes and phases and aspects, or Kala in the derived sense. The first plane and phase to appear are the axis of homoplanarity, and the phase of origin about to evolve the basic opposition of sense, or polarity. As homoplanar, power, or consciousness, sees itself as continuing even in a given state. We may call this Bindu, seeing itself as nada. Nada also sees itself as and in Bindu after being evolved, seen out as in Om. Like Kala, nada has a more functional meaning also. Here, Bindu sees itself as nada, but one can say also that nada sees itself as Bindu. Nada here is the alogical continuum of power consciousness. Akhanda Vyapika Chit. Shakti is Brahman, is Nada. Purna Samrodhika Chit. Shakti is Brahma, is Bindu. Purna Samrodhika is also Purna Samshadika. Power as perfect focus is power as perfect fount. 2. Bindu posits itself as the axis of nada. Bindu again as the origin of the axis of homoplanarity is the secondary one. It is the first evolvent evolute, the first homoplanarity too. Evolves into a number of planes. These may be right or oblique. As right, the planes are basically 7 corresponding to the 7 Vyahrtis. If each of these be called a kind of nada, then taking also into account the fundamental nada continuum, and nada as the axis of homoplanarity, we have altogether 9 forms of nada. 3. Nada posits itself as magnitude and number. From nada so manifest is evolved the order of magnitude, or parimeya. From the polar opposition and phase presentation is evolved the order of number, or samkhya. Polar opposition gives the limit of plus and minus, and phase presenting, for example in a system of waves, makes the counting of times, which is numeration. It is the interval between one phase presentation and another intuiting itself as such. In a wave, for concrete example, the length gives magnitude and frequency number. 4. Nada-wise and Bindu-wise. In power positing itself as Bindu, there is as yet no polarity manifested of nada and Bindu. They are in alogical coalescence. They have not yet seen themselves mathematically as magnitude and number. Mathematics is born with the axis of homoplanarity, the homo polarizing itself as Somo, or magnitude, and mono, or number. Magnitude's basic urge is for evenness and homogeneity, for expansion, free and unbounded. Nature's basic urge is for unity, for convergence, for complete integration. Somo and mono impart therefore a dual character of the axis of homoplanarity. Every process in creation hinges upon and tends to converge and merge into origin, where Bindu is. Creative process is original. This is process or movement as Bindu-wise. This converges, gathers home into fullness as well as quiescence all processes in creation. If the mutual inclination of any two processes be represented by kona, this is nil when the Bindu is reached. It is the point of fullness in the sense that it is upon this that any process line completes its whole round of movement. On the other hand, every process line flows out and spreads and expands from the Bindu as the ultimate spring head. This is nada-wise. The first opposition of sense in the axis of homoplanarity is thus represented by this cosmic movement of flowing in and flowing out. The mystic spring expands into an ocean of manifestation, and the limitless ocean gathers itself into the fathomless spring. The ocean expands, but it never exhausts the spring. Magnitude grows and multiplies, but number claims all as one family, and relates all by one equation. That, at least, is the basic urge of Somo and Mono, to unite themselves as one indivorcible couple. No knowledge, no science, no realization of reality would be possible if the Somo and Mono aspects of the fundamental axis were not thus coupled. In other words, if there were not a mystic point which is both all in and all out. Consider an atom, a nucleated living molecule, a type, a self, a person. Study each nada-wise and Bindu-wise. That is, with respect to the origin of the axis of homoplanarity, in which the basic opposition of Somo and Mono, in and out, has manifested itself. In the nuclear atom, for instance, cosmic energy is in as mass, and recently we have discovered how to make that in, or part of that in, out. Though the energy equivalent of mass is given, for example by Einstein's equation, the complete convertibility of one into the other is not possible on our axis of practical analysis. We miss the mystery point which makes Somo and Mono operate in perfect correlativity. It is the axis of homoplanarity which gives and guarantees both perfect convertibility and reversibility of in and out actions. In our universe of acceptance, there is no perfect reversing the gear. A process out from the center cannot be completely and perfectly brought in, and given its perfect fulfillment and repose. The left-hand side of Heisenberg's equation is not ordinarily equatable to zero or infinity. 5. The cosmic remainder of residual effects. In the cosmic process, the residual effects accumulate, and there is no resolving them except by realistically affirming the axis of homoplanarity in its axis of Somo and Mono, Samatvam and Ekatvam. It is the axis that makes possible the realization of pure principles leading up to Brahman. When Bindu posits itself as that axis, it becomes the equivalent of pure principle first of all. In and out, up and down, etc., are not yet subject to curving and refracting space-time conditions. Therefore, convertibility and reversibility are complete without margins of irreducibility, projectivity, and invertibility, are also right and straight. Somo and Mono rule the process. The object of sadhana and also japa is to reach and settle down here. 6. The axis is not static, it moves. Hinged upon its origin, or Bindu, the axis must move to evolve and create. Should it move obliquely to its given homoplanarity? That cannot be under the ab initio pure conditions. Its self-projection so as to evolve other planes should be straight or Somo. And along the axis of projection and inversion, the origin should remain mono, that is, collinear. 7. The locus of Somo and Mono. Suppose we take two positions homo-wise, for example, equidistant from zero. What can be the locus of an axis of projection which is also homo-wise, for example, equidistant at every point, with respect to the two positions in the original axis? It is the right or perpendicular projection. Take any point on the projection axis, join it with the first 2 points, and you get a polar triangle divided into two homologous right-angled triangles. So long as the operative principles are pure, the plenium or frame pure process must also be pure like that. Hence, the polar triangle, posited homogeneously along the axis of projection, is one that first evolves. It is the first pure enclosure. It is the first pure derived kala from Bindu positing itself as axis of homoplanarity, and moving this axis in an essay of pure, that means right, projection. Here, kala is the first determinate product, or kalita, of power's pure descent into the realms of concrete manifestation. 8. One example. In the first evolved polar triangle, the one Bindu evolves as 3. One nada, for example the axis line, evolves also as 3, and Kala in the above sense also as 3, that is, two homologous triangles plus their sum. Any number with 0 as index, that is, completely Bindu-wise, is mono or 1. Completely nada-wise, it is ui. 9. Number 10. The original 1 persists in evolving. So 1 plus 3 times 3 is equal to 10. This number is given in the first homo-wise polar triangle that evolves from Bindu becoming process and process becoming product. Study also the significance of 1 and 0. 10. Implication of duplication. Creative evolution begins with duplication and opposition. It proceeds by integration and coordination. It ends with completed unification and realized harmony. The end is original in the sense that power consciousness, by positing itself as fundamental origin or Bindu, works out a complete process and perfected result. In this process or descent, that pure, meaning right or straight, Somo and Mono, comes first. They are not abstractions, however, in respect to the concrete reals that emerge later. Pure descent is logical, not temporal. From Kala as completely integrated fullness to Kala as differentiated and reintegrated partials and phases. Curving and curvature come when the pure homogeneous plenum has so far differentiated itself as to become a differential field with intrinsic, local, geometry and dynamics. Then process or movement cannot go straight. Projection is not right. Conversion, reversion, inversion, not complete. R on the resisting and residual factor comes and accumulates. Power, freedom and harmony become cosmic destiny and chance. Sadhana is an essay of the will to return to the pure by reducing the R and its maintaining conditions. Yet, as we shall see in Chapter 3, curvature in its susamna, or proto-emergence, renders creative act into patterns of cosmic symmetry and harmony. 11. Rectilinear procession. In the purely evolved polar triangle, we have two konas in opposition. This sets the norm for all rectilinear figures, such as 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides, to evolve. The konas in them must be in the order of the even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. Without duplication, these give all the numbers, 1, 2, 3, etc. With duplication, the numbers become even and measure out the konas in all ascending rectilinear patterns. In the case of the interlaced triangle, for instance, we have the hexagon by joining the 6 conal points, and interlacing gives the conal numbers 8, not 4. As in the two simply inverted triangles. The basic relation of evolving rectilinear patterns and numbers is important because this basically connects the Yantram with the Mantram. The correlating process is Tantram. Duplication still rules when the curved and wave patterns come, for example, in the factor 2 pi. 12. The three Vyahrtis. Vyahrtis have been referred to as evolving planes. They, especially the first three called Maha, are also evolvent functions. For instance, in the homoplanar axis, the original Bindu may be Swar, the evolved polar triangle, or any other plane that results, as this, is Bhur, and the evolving process or movement of the axis or Bindu is Bhuvar. This last is therefore dynamic Shakti Lekha and cannot be mere void or gap or hiatus. It determines the evolved pattern and its relation to the original. In Om, the Bindu is Svar, Nada, Bhuvar, Kala as evolved, is Bhur. 13. The right or Sama-konic number and its practical significance. As in the descent below, the atomic number, the chromosome number, and so on, rule the economy of natural order, so more basically in pure descent and ascent thereto, it is the right conic number, you may call it Somo number, of the Yantram that really counts and decides. Find the Somo number of any individual, and you truly find him. Somo number is any patterns spread out number, inside graph number. Corresponding to this and underlying this is the indrawing, bija or seed number. You call it mono number. It is the mantram. It is the nabhi or the matrix navel of the whole basic measure scheme, that is swarupa matra, of any object. It opens into and connects a thing with its hrekla. Besides these two, we have another crucial number, the homo number. It is the right tantram. These basically come under certain archetypes. Given an individual, three issues of compatibility or incompatibility arise. What is its right somo, its right mono? What is the right way of application of one in respect to the other in the given context of power condition? Diksha is for a potential resolution of these issues, sadhana for the actual.